I've bought painting companies, I've sold painting companies, I've cash flowed painting companies. I have advised dozens of painting contractors over the years on buying painting companies, selling painting companies, and cash flowing painting companies. So this is what I've been doing for a long time. We've done all of them, and in this video, I'm gonna show you why I don't think you should ever sell your painting company and what you should do instead. All right, and the way we're gonna attack this is we're gonna look at a few things. First, I'm gonna walk you through just standard multiples. So if you go and get a valuation on your business, what are they gonna tell you? So that you can start to get an idea of like, what could I actually sell this for? And once I show you that, you'll be like, oh, I see why it doesn't make a lot of sense to sell. And then we're gonna talk real quick just about the goal of selling. Like, why would you be considering selling your business in the first place? And so then we'll look at basically two options. We'll look at the economics and the financial breakdown for what it looks like if you were to sell your business. And then we're gonna look at the economics for what if you were to cash flow your business. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to cash flow your business because you're gonna see that this is way more lucrative than this. Sound good? So that's what we're gonna dive into. Let's jump straight into standard multiples for selling your business. So the first thing that you need to understand with selling and buying businesses is there's gonna be a valuation formula for the value or the sale price of a business. And so if you just go to a CPA, which I've done with a number of my own companies and companies we've bought and companies we've sold, and you just get a standard valuation, the standard valuation in our industry is 2 to 3 times earnings of the last 3 years average. Now, this is not 100% of the time valuation, but it's pretty standard, is 2 to 3 times earnings of a 3-year average. So I'll come back and give an example of this in a minute, but we can increase this multiple. All right, so we could say, let's just say it's 3 times earnings of the last 3 years. They are gonna take the average of the last few years, so they don't just heavily weight, hey, if you had a really good year last year, well, maybe it was too good. We need to take the previous years. If it was down a little bit, they're like, okay, well, we'll take the previous couple years. So they're always gonna take some kind of average earnings over the last few years to have the track record of the business to know like, how reliable and stable is this thing? So they're gonna average a few years of profit in the business. And let's just say they take 3 times earnings. All right, what that means is if you made $100,000 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago was 150, and last year was 200. That was your profit, your take home, your owner's compensation. The average is 150,000. So 3 times earnings means that your sale price for the business would be $450,000. So right there, that kind of sucks, right? Because you're making 200 grand a year. You're gonna sell it, and basically in exchange, you're gonna get 2 years of pay, right? And this has been a growing business. So if the next year you were gonna do 250, you might be selling it for like, 20 months of work and probably not worth selling at that multiple. So then you say, okay, well, how can I increase the multiple? Because you can. I know there's people who have sold for a higher multiple, but the way you sell for a higher multiple is you create a more recurring business. So you get like some long-term contracts, you get more repeat business, you build more systems into your company. You essentially create the business to be a more reliable source of cash flow, right? So the reason a service company doesn't sell well is because mostly it requires you to show up and run it. It's a service company. And if you've got a big team of people, there's a risk for me in buying your business. Because if I buy your business, and then I lose a couple of your team members, that business just got less valuable like overnight. Or if you're a small business and I buy from you, well, there might be a lot of customers who wanted to work with you, and now that you're not there, I lose some of that business. So there's a risk to a service business because it's very much like how we build a business is we market to get potential clients, we sell those clients, then we manage those projects. And if you're the one doing it all, I'm basically buying a job from you and I'm buying the marketing flow. But if you're paying for all the leads, like what am I really buying? I'm buying your website. I'm buying maybe like your recurring book of business. And so there are ways that we can increase the multiple by creating more recurring business, more long-term contracts, more consistency, more reliability, less risk. But if you do that, first of all, it takes time to build your business to get a higher multiple, but also if you get a higher multiple, you just made the business more valuable for you also, which makes the sale price less appealing to you also. All right, so it's really important to just start by understanding these multiples and that it's not very attractive. I also think it's not very attractive to buy these businesses because of what I said before. You know, a business that's making 200 grand a year, for me to buy it for 450, there is some risk, right? What if I lose a couple of your team members? What if I lose some of your crews? What if, you know, I lose some of that recurring business? What if this was just kind of juiced up from a couple contracts that we don't get the next year? I mean, there's some risk for me in this. If I maintain this 200,000 income, it's going to take me 2 years just to pay off the 450,000. And I know, as Eric, I know that I can actually start a business. And by the second year, I can have a business making 200 grand a year. I could start a business, I can make 100,000 in year 1, I can make 200,000 in year 2, and I'm plus 300 grand, and I've just rebuilt that business. And so I don't think the market is good for buying and selling painting companies, generally speaking. All right, so now let's transition into the goal of selling so that we can understand, like, okay, why would you sell and what's a better route to take if selling's not the route to take? So let me show you what that is. All right, so it's really simple. The goal of selling your company, if you're thinking about like, I want to sell my company, it's because you want to exit the business, so you don't want to work in it anymore. All right, so I want to figure out how to get myself out of this business, and I want to get paid, right? I want to get money from what I've built. All right, so that's all we're going to cover on the goal. Now let's look at the economics of selling in a little bit more detail. So basically, if we sell, I already showed you this on the last whiteboard there. So if you have a business that's averaging 150K per year, you can sell it for 450K. All right, and if you do that, that's the money you make, the 450K. But 450 grand isn't very useful to you because you're going to spend it. And then what? Like, you can't live for the rest of your life on 450 grand. So you're going to spend that money. So what we're really after here is we're going to take that 450 grand and we're going to try to invest it, right? So we want to invest it. And if you get a conservative 6% return on your money, then what's 6% of 450,000? $27,000 a year? So this is either we can just go and blow 450 grand and then have to go start another business to start making income to live on again, because you're used to making 150 grand a year. So if you sell for 450, in 3 years, you're either going to be out of money and have to just go start something else, which you're better off just growing this than starting something from scratch, because the hardest years are always the early years. Or you invest this 450 to get $27,000 a year in cash. But we want to exit, we want money. So this is what the money looks like if I sell the business. I'm either going to get 3 years of living expenses and go through them, or I'm not going to spend any of that and I've got $27,000 a year, which also isn't enough for me to live on. All right. And so I still need to go start something else. So there's not a lot of like juice in selling the business. So now I want to show you what it looks like to do what I did, which is to cash flow the business. All right, so let me start this by sharing what I did with my company. So I wanted to get out of my business in 2000, since I started it, right? I started my painting business in 2010, very end of the year. Then I did 2011, 2012, 2013, and I was trying to get out. I didn't want to be in the painting business. And in 2013 is when I decided, hey, actually, I do want to be in the business, but I had already set up my exit plan and I couldn't take that away from someone. So I didn't want to sell my business. At the time, we did $650,000 in revenue. I made $110,000 in profit. But the previous years, I made like 75 and 60. So the average was going to be like 100K a year. Maybe I could have sold it for like 300 grand and just gotten 300K. That's not what I did. What I did instead is I gave Ben 50% of my business. All right, so 50% of my company went to Ben. And I said, hey, the deal is, Ben, you run the business now. I'm out. Here you go. He didn't pay me a dime for it. I just gave it to him. And you know what he did? He was fired up. He was so excited. He'd worked with me for a few years. I've been grooming him to do it. He earned it. He was ready. I gave it to him. And you know what Ben did the next year? He grew the heck out of the business. He grew it to 1.1 million. We made 220,000 or so in profit. I made $110,000. All right, is what I made that next year. And I had exited. Now, if I would have sold that for 300 grand and taken my 6% cash flow, then I would have, so the alternative here is I could have taken 300K and taken 18K in cash flow. All right, so I would have 300 grand and I'd have 18 in cash flow. In this situation, I have 110,000 in cash flow and I still own 50% of the business, which was worth more the next year because now the previous 3 years I made the income was all better, right? It was 200, 100, and something else. Where like, I basically still have the same asset, but I'm kicking off 110,000 in cash flow instead of 18. All right, so this created a lot more economics for me in the very first year. But also, you don't need to give 50% equity to someone in your business. Like, I just gave Ben a ton of opportunity. You don't need to do that. So here's the further benefits. So if you give someone, you could give someone 10%, and then when they hit the next target, 20%, and then the next target, 30%. So that they slowly earn more equity to take over the accountabilities in your business. You could also offer to 2 or 3 people in your business, hey, I'm gonna give you 10, 10, and 10. To you 3 to run the company now, and I'm just gonna do a meeting with the 3 of you every week. I think that you do like your business, you've built your business, you just wanna get out of it because of the stress and you want some freedom and all that. Great, so have other people be your shield. Other people can take the stress by taking the opportunity, right? They have more upside, more opportunity to grow the business. So in the very first year, you might go from, I made 150K to now I only made 100K because I gave away 30% of the business. But what's going to happen when you've got 3 motivated people? So for me, what happened is since I gave Ben half the company, he's grown my company. He's grown Foothills, our company, to $7 million a year. We make over $1 million a year in profit. So this has actually turned into something that kicks off $400,000 plus to me every single year and growing. I've literally made millions of dollars from this business and I still exited. All right, so that's what we mean by cash flowing a business. It's a far more lucrative approach because from day one, it's gonna be worth more to you, but then it has the opportunity to keep growing and you still have the opportunity to sell your share of the business at any time in the future if you want to. But it almost will never make sense because a 3 times multiple is the same as saying like a 30% return on capital, which is crazy. Like you're better off keeping that because people would kill for a 30% year-over-year return on capital. All right, so the game, I think, for building your business is to create a cash flow machine that you just have removed yourself from the accountabilities from, but you still have influence to help the business get better over time. All right, so now let's take a quick look at the pathway for getting there. So if you see this and you're like, hey, this is what I want to do, it's not something you're going to snap your fingers and do overnight, which you wouldn't want to. You spent a lot of time building your business to get it to the point it's at. Now we want to say, okay, now let's take a couple more years to create myself essentially like a retirement fund. I mean, that's what this really could be. If I wanted to, I could basically have just stopped and not started all these other things. I just love what I do. But you could create this as like the end game for you. All right, so let's take a look at the pathway for getting there and some of the different options that you have to creatively set up a cash flow machine where you're not really accountable in the business anymore. All right, so there's 3 things that I think are really important for you to get in place to pull this off successfully. All right, so the first thing is you have to create a solid foundation for your business. And what I mean by a solid foundation, I've talked about this in a lot of different videos. You need to have reliable systems for marketing and generating clients. You need to have reliable systems for estimating and pricing so that you get accurate, consistent prices every time that hit your profit margins you need. You need to have a good sales process in place. You need a strong production management process in place to deliver high quality work profitably with people who love working for you. You need to be on top of your numbers and your business metrics, and you need to have some kind of CRM in place. So we need to have a foundation in the business. And I always say that this is phase 1. This is where you're the one doing it all. If you don't create these kind of systems in place for the foundation, you're not going to build a successful team, and it's going to be chaos when you try to leave. Like there's a chance if you don't have these systems in place and you have someone else just take over and there's no systems, there's a chance that the business just falls apart and you get nothing from it. All right, so I don't think there's any shortcuts here. I don't think there's any way around, like you've got to do the work to build a healthy business. If it's not a healthy business, you can't sell it. And if it's not a healthy business, you can't cash flow it. And the way you build a healthy business is first you need a strong foundation in your business. That's literally what we help people do at Painting Business Pro. We say, here's your marketing systems, here's your sales systems, here's your project management systems, here's your tech stack, here's your business plan, here's training on all of it, here's coaching webinars. Like we give you everything to do that. Like that's what we do, but we got to build a foundation first. By the way, there's a lot of other resources out in the industry too to help you build a strong foundation. Once you have a foundation, then you've got to build a team, because if you don't have someone else who's going to take over running the business, then you can't do this cash flow thing that I'm showing you. You need someone who is reliable, who is dedicated, and who is ambitious. that you trust. You need to, and it's your job. You don't just like find that person and ask. You've got to develop that. It's your job to recruit them. It's your job to train them. It's your job to build the relationship. It's your job to cultivate their own ambition and their own belief in themselves. It's your job to kind of, I don't like the term dangle the carrot, but it's your job to show them that there's a future here for them and that there's a big opportunity here for them to take over the business and grow the business. So you need to have that person. You can't just like shortcut this and just try to give it to someone who's not reliable, dedicated, and ambitious. Your job, once you build a strong foundation, is to build a good team and to identify who is capable of doing this. And the better you do with the foundation and the better you do with recruiting and training, the better person you're going to have who can take over your company and the more successful they're going to be with it. This is hugely valuable to you. This could be worth millions of dollars to get these two things right. Once you have that person, then you've actually got to set it up and figure out how you're going to offer them equity and upside, etc. And once they've done that, you need a support system for them as the operator. All right, so what you don't want to do is just say, okay, it's your job now, see ya, I'm out, and just disappear, to Thailand for the rest of your life or whatever you want to go and do that's not in your business. You don't want to do that because you've built an asset here that can pay you a lot of money in dividends every year, a lot of distributions every year, and it can grow. Hugely valuable here. So we don't want to get this right and do all that work and then like leave anything up to chance. So once I put my operator in place, then I need to train and develop the leadership team. It might be one person, it might be 3 people, but now I need to make sure there is training, development, and accountability in place for that leadership team so that the asset I have given them grows. For who? For them, so that they have opportunity to make great money, to build a business, to create freedom in their life, and for you, so that your asset keeps growing. Now there's 3 different ways that you can put training, development, accountability in place. You can do it yourself. That's what I've always done. I've always been the support for Ben, and that's it, right? Like I train, I develop, I hold accountable, I support. Like I love that. I love doing that. I love training. I love coaching. I love working with people. I love business. So I've been the one who's done that. You could do it. You don't have to. The other option is there's a lot of coaches and consultants in the industry. So in our situation here, we basically said, you're taking $150,000 a year income and you're going to give some of it away and you're going to keep $100,000. You could go pay $25,000 a year to other people who work with your team and you can remove yourself. And now it's like, okay, it's $75K, but I'm like truly out. And then the third option is there's partnerships. Like this is one of the things we do, with our portfolio companies. We partner with people and we help you do this as fast as possible, as well as possible. We help you do this with hiring your team and training your team and developing your team. And we have all of our internal training and development programs. And then we do this for you. So as soon as you've built your team, you can exit, you can launch another company with us, you can do whatever. There's other people who do this in our industry too, who partner with people and they could eventually act as your exit plan because instead of you being plugged into their systems, you just plug your team into their systems. And now you're just like, hey, they're the owner now, so I'm just gonna plug them in instead of me and I'm out. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this last piece. But this is the pathway to essentially taking the asset you're building in a painting business and turning it into an asset that pays you tremendous cash flow. The real estate industry is a massive industry because people are buying real estate to create cash flow of maybe $500 a month or $1,000 a month on real estate. You have the opportunity to take your $500,000, $750,000, $2 million painting business and turn it into something that's kicking off $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month and can grow 20% a year, which is enormous. And then guess what? You can take that cash and you can invest that cash into real estate and you still own your equity in the company. So if you ever do want to sell, you can still sell. So that's why I say never sell your painting company. There's a lot of other ways that you can go about capitalizing on this asset that you've built that is far more lucrative than trying to sell it.